Supporters towards execution of Mambila hydropower project. President Buhari appeals to China.
Hydro project remains a key priority for Nigeria. Our wish is to fully fund the project with concessionary loans from China.
Federal government proposes injection of 6 trillion naira into Nigerian health sector.
Nigeria Consolidation Ambassadors Network picks APC nomination form for President Buhari.
National Working Committee are present to witness the collection upon receipt of the nomination fee.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on financing election campaigns.
It is another election season, and many people have continued to express their interest in contesting one position or the other.
That's right, Kiriam. Now, the timetable as released by the electoral umpire, which earlier restricted such activities, is now giving them the green light to proceed. And very soon, we shall witness primary elections as well as campaigns, obviously, to elect the party candidates and then eventually those who will step into offices.
Exactly. And that is where financing comes in, as it plays a major role at such times.
You're spot on again, Kirian, because campaign financing is one issue that democracies the world over pay attention to. And virtually every country has written into its own electoral framework, rules and procedures on campaign financing to ensure that democracy is rescued from the influence of money bags and to also ensure that the people's mandate actually count.
Now, in Nigeria, sections 222 to 229 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, provides rules and regulations on the operations of political parties, with sections 225 and 226 thereof affirming the powers of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to monitor, inquire into and assess campaign finances and a party's source of the management of such funds.
And Section 228 expressly provides sanctions with regard to party finance and campaign finance, and also provides or empowers the National Assembly to indicate by way of statutory provisions what should be done in this respect.
However, one financial area that is currently in the news is the costs of nomination forms sold by political parties to aspiring politicians. There is a general outcry that the expression of interests and nomination forms now on sale are on the high side.
And one question that has been asked is, what is the basis for costing the expression of interest forms? In other words, how much should political parties charge for such forms?
Well, that question should be put to the professionals who may actually assist us this morning to, of course, do a discussion on the issue. And for my opinion, I'll leave it to myself. But first of all, now let's wait for experts to tell us more. What is known is that the sales of parties' nomination forms is on, and politicians with ambitions to contest political offices are daily trooping to their respective parties to pick them up. President Muhammadu Buhari's form was picked up for him yesterday by a group known as Nigeria Consolidation Ambassadors Network.
Well, another question to ask again is, how are political campaigns financed in Nigeria? And why are political parties charging such high amounts for nomination forms? Does that not, as the question has been asked, eliminate certain categories of persons from aspiring for political offices? And when will the political space be open to all, irrespective of their financial standing? Where will the young and not too rich persons interested in party politics begin to gain access into the political space?
That's indeed a very big question, because you have to identify that you are capable of running. But of course, what matters is how much is put there for that purpose. Now, these are some of the questions discussants will answer this morning on the program. I am Kirian Umai, welcoming to Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, of course, the largest TV network in Africa.
That's right, Kirian. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I join you, of course, in thanking our viewers for tuning in to us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. As always, we'll have our regular companion segments, and there's newspaper review, business, foreign, sports, and others. In the meantime, let's join Stella Inamiti with the highlights of the morning news. Hi, Stella.
Hi, Kingsley and Kirian. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on the early morning news. Nigeria and the People's Republic of China have signed 2 new agreements aimed at strengthening and expanding their mutually beneficial cooperation and collaboration in critical sectors for enhanced socioeconomic development. Correspondent Adamu Sambu says this was the outcome of the high-level talks between President Muhammadu Buhari and his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, in Beijing. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has renewed his appeal to the People's Republic of China for adequate support towards the execution of the Mambila hydropower project, which he described as a key priority of his administration. The president made the plea at a bilateral meeting with the President Xi Jinping at the Great Wall of the People's Republic of China. Still in China, with the 2018 Beijing Forum on China-Africa cooperation over, African countries have started reflecting on how best they can maximize the gains of this engagement with China.
China-Africa cooperation, as part of the international cooperation with Africa, follows the principle of mutual benefit, openness and inclusiveness.
We in Nigeria, in the framework of ECOWAS and also in the framework of the African Union, are pushing for greater African integration. So it makes sense to have a coherent approach to that process. And we believe, as a government, will put the country on a real sustainable growth trajectory. So whatever resources we get will be, spent within the framework of the economic recovery and growth plans.
The federal government has opted to usher the Nigerian health sector into a new era with the approval of a sum of 6.071 trillion naira for a 5-year harmonized plan. The effective implementation of the plan is expected to reduce maternal mortality rate by about 31%, among other health-related problems confronting the nation. Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewole, made this known at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja.
Thematic areas, 48 strategic objectives, and 282 interventions that will help us to really improve the healthcare delivery that we offer our people. And health is part of the corporate desire to invest in our people. And when there are strong indicators, one of which is to invest in the primary care. So we are actually re-engineering the health sector. And for the first time in the history of the country, we are implementing the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. In our 2018 budget, there is an appropriation of 55.1 billion naira for basic healthcare services. And this money, we are working hard on this, will flow straight from central bank to the facility.
The presidency says former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is right to say President Muhammadu Buhari is uncompromising against corruption, but would not agree that he is power drunk. Responding to a comment made by the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar on a foreign news medium, the presidency noted that President Buhari is uncompromising in the quest to restore probity and accountability to public office and resolute in his determination to ensure that Nigeria is no longer a mono economy, depending only on oil. A statement by Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, noted that the former vice president is wrong to say that President Buhari is power drunk and being a man who will not be ready to leave power without a fight. Additional says President Buhari has demonstrated in many ways that he is a committed Democrat and has wielded power with decency as a means of serving the people rather than for personal ends. The presidency also assured the former vice president that there will be no fight over power in Nigeria. The All Progressives Congress has commenced a sale of expression of interest and nomination forms for aspirants ahead of the 2019 general election. Top on the list of aspirants collecting the expression of interest and nomination is the Nigeria Consolidation Ambassadors Network, which resolved to see to the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari for his second term in office by picking up the form for the president.
For almost a year now, to pull our resources together for us to be able to purchase the nomination form.
Because it's the very first form we are giving out, I retaliated by assuring that most members, National Working Committee, are present to witness the collection upon receipt of the nomination fee.
And as Nigeria consolidates on the gains of economic recovery, the Nigeria Statistical Association advocates framework for data management for economic growth and structural transformation. This was at the 42nd Annual National Conference.
And manipulating the data, can't you think beyond the data? Can't you be creative, innovative in the design of the algorithms that would generate money?
I would wish the flat sheets and all that, even when I see the cars on the road, I would like to know how many companies are actually made here and not just assembled. From copycat to innovator, want to invent things, design them, brand them, market them.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after the break.
And now let's turn to business. Nigeria's purchasing manganese index, PMI, reaches peak of 54.8 in August as Nigeria's foreign reserves declined by $1.28 billion in the same month. Details on Business News with Joy Ozo.
Welcome to Business News. Purchasing Managers Index, as compiled by FBN Quest, spiked by 12.07% to 54.8 points in August. Any reading above 50 points is considered positive and reflects an expansion in the manufacturing sector. Meanwhile, Brent oil on Wednesday traded at a one-month high of $78 per barrel. In another development, Nigeria's foreign reserves declined by $1.28 billion in August to $45.84 billion. This is the second successive monthly decline. July's decline of $670 million was largely due to the repayment by the federal government of $500 million to holders of a maturing Eurobond that is yet to be refinanced. This latest decline is being attributed to the changed stance of some players in the offshore community. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria on Tuesday made available $210 million to meet customers' requests in various segments of the foreign exchange markets. And the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority said it would deliver the air transport license and aircraft operator certificate to the nation's new national carrier, Nigeria Air, in the next 90 days. Director General NACA, Captain Mukhtar Usman, who announced this at a news conference in Lagos, said the proposed December takeoff of the carrier was still feasible. The airline transport license is the highest level of aircraft pilot certificate. The air operator certificate, on the other hand, is the approval granted by a National Aviation Authority to an aircraft operator to allow it to use aircraft for commercial purposes. Still on business news, the federal government has asked MTN Nigeria to pay fresh $2 billion in tax arrears on imported equipment and payments to suppliers. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, in a letter to the company, said the import duties, value-added tax and withholding taxes on foreign imports and payments dated back to 10 years. However, MTN Nigeria said an initial assessment of the period indicated that total payments made to the tax authorities with regard to the foreign imports and payments amounted to $700 million, adding that it had fully settled all taxes on the imports under scrutiny. The Office of Nigeria's Attorney General said on Tuesday that a whistleblower prompted an investigation into alleged MTN infractions that last week led to a demand for $8.1 billion taken out of Nigeria to be brought back. MTN, in a statement, said all dividend repatriation out of Nigeria was done on the basis of equity capital and with valid certificates. Just before we go, let's take a quick look at the closing figures of trade from the Nigerian Stock Exchange from Wednesday, September 5. That stock market report wraps up business news at this time. Many thanks for watching. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy, for the business package. Next for us now is a review of the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
It's now time for us to take a look at what the national dailies are saying on the front pages. And I would like to begin with the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper, just below the nameplate, federal government moves to end cholera outbreaks in 2023. That's on page 4. And then on the right-hand side of the paper, we have 7 PDP governors back Saraki's presidential ambition. It's also on page 4. And now the main headline on the Guardian: APC governors defy party, opt for indirect primaries, with 4 riders: Nasarawa, Kebbi, Plateau, Bauchi, others reject direct option. Party's executive insists directive stands. Abia State, Sani, Rubadu, others back substituting order. PDP set to receive 6 APC governors, 27 federal lawmakers, and court rules out fresh Congress for Rivers. Now, Buhari seeks China's support for Mambila Power Project. With the 2 riders to that, we will ensure it succeeds, says the President of China, Xi Jinping. Stakeholders differ on $328 million ICT loan for Nigeria. And on the foot of the Guardian, we have some stories there. At second memorial lecture, U.S. Don lauds Michael Ibru's pioneering spirit. That's on page 4. Then at Jakarta Steel Complex, foreign customers' indebtedness to power sector hits 2.2 billion naira. Agency raises flood alert for 7 states, and NFF slams 1-year ban on Super Eagles coach for accepting bribe.
All right, let's also take a look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, which is busy with a lot of political stories. Right below the nameplate and indeed below the adverts that you have there, says high-profile defectors still under probe, and that's according to the EFCC. Magu accepts timing error in Benue and Akwa Ibom probe. Details on page 3. National Assembly resumption. APC PDP primaries threaten September date. May shift resumption to October 9. Kirian, you recall that the National Assembly had broken for their annual recess from plenary. That was in July, and they're scheduled to resume this month. But now with the scheduling of the primaries for later this month, the Nigerian Tribune is reporting that sources are indicating that the resumption may not be feasible on account of the primaries that they're having for the various elective positions, and that this therefore will be shifted to the 9th of October.
And many Nigerians may also be asking the question as to the necessity for the shift. How would the primaries, just distort, the schedule of the National Assembly, which of course plays a key role, in governance.
All right. Yeah, well, the details of the story on page 3, for instance, so the APC had ratified its guidelines for the 2019 elections, indicating that the primaries for the Senate and House of Reps will be conducted on the 27th and 29th. And they were scheduled to resume on the 25th. Of course, it means that the politicians, that's who they are, will have to be at their respective bases to canvass support and then move on from there. Let's take other headlines now, still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Osun PDP, that's the kicker. Adeleke Ogumboyi reconciled. Party says, that's the PDP says, 6 APC governors, 27 National Assembly members expected to join soon. That's still on the gale of proposed defection. Details of that story inside. APC primaries, against part of the story that Kirian you read earlier. Ogun, Oyo, and Kebbi choose consensus method. Ogun, Oyo, Kebbi choose consensus method. Kogi, Plateau, Ondo, Zamfara, Sokoto go for indirect primaries. And Kano, Niger, Abia adopt direct method. Amosun announces senatorial ambition, unveils successor today. Ajimobi meets governorship aspirants on Saturday.
Now, Kingsley, why this, disparities, with respect to adopting a method for the primaries, is a direct, indirect, and of course we have another option now, which is consensus, right? That's right. So what is the fear, because in some states, some I'm making sure that they will choose indirect. What is the difference?
Well, all 3 options for electing a party's candidate are available for the APC, for instance, in the party's constitution. That
so it's optional now.
A candidate could emerge by consensus, in which case there's no election. We all agree that it will be Kirian. You are smiling.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
We all agree that it will be Kirian.
When the time comes.
And then Kirian, of course, is presented as a candidate, and everybody is supposed to rally around and support. Alternatively, you say it's direct, in which case all the registered members of the party in that particular election vote for the particular candidate of their choice. But of course, if it is indirect, it means that you now have the so-called delegates list, often subject to, as we have seen since 1999, to disputes.
Instead, before you become a delegate, of course we know where you're going to vote.
That's right. That's right. So that's to say that delegates are more amenable to control of influence brokers. But if it is a direct primary, it's just like the option A4 that we saw in the past. So that's precisely what is playing out. But the National Working Committee of the APC has given a directive that it will be the direct primary. So test your popularity amongst our members in the first instance, so we know how you are. But I'm sure that this is a matter that will continue to
have. And yes. I think that's a good way of bringing about internal democracy, which Nigerians have been yearning for over the years, where somebody doesn't have to lord it over others because of his influence or connections and what have you.
That's right. Yeah, but again, that's the one issue that will arise from this, assuming it goes for litigation. This is just for purposes of analysis. If it goes for litigation, then the question would be, do state chapters of a political party have the option of choosing which method to elect candidates for particular offices?
But APC has one constitution, so it's applicable. I mean, for me, my little understanding, if it's a matter of constitution, everybody abides by it.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that there are those 3 options are available in the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't specify which one you would choose, unless, of course, I'm not familiar with that provision of the APC Constitution, that if the National Working Committee decides on a particular method, then it must cascade down to the provinces or to the regions. Let's take other headlines now. There's a running copy that Kieran, you and I haven't been on set together, but this has to do with E.K. Clark, the former Minister of Information. Edwin Clark, the story is there on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, or rather we can take it from the New Telegraph. We haven't had New Telegraph. New Telegraph has political stories as well. But just that's the second lead story on the front page of the New Telegraph, right at the foot of the front page of the paper, just below the photographs of the deserted scenes at the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. That's in Ikeja, Lagos, on the heels of the doctor's strike. Taxi driver told me arms were stockpiled in Clark's residence. That's according to an informant, who of course is now helping the police with their investigation. The story, of course, broke 2 days ago that the residence of, Chief Ike Clark in Abuja had been, was, under search, by some police
unauthorized policemen, from what we had from the IGP.
That's right.
And if you go to Daily Sun this morning, let's see how it captured it, because this capturing really is a sign of the ripples, coming from that. The main headline on Daily Sun: Niger Delta militants suspend ceasefire, with a rider condemned raid of Clark's home, threatened to return to the creeks.
In light of what the police authorities have done, this would appear to be unnecessary. In other words, the threat to suspend the ceasefire, it was as the police themselves have indicated, it was an illegal duty that the police officers embarked upon. 4 of them, they claimed that they were acting on the intelligence provided by the person, the individual who is also now in the custody of the police.
Wouldn't there be a clearing authority before you take such action?
Ought to be, but again, as I mentioned yesterday when we were discussing this in terms of the story, the police have the right of search. But that right of search, of course, can only be actuated once you have credible and actionable intelligence. And there are also procedures for carrying out a search.
Such search, because you need to have a search warrant in the first place, signed by a superior officer. And to the personality of Edwin Clark, there's no police that should go to his side without the clearance from the IGP. In my own little
well, not necessarily from the IGP.
Or any other higher authority.
Usually a search warrant will be from a magistrate court or otherwise. But if, of course, there is a fear that the evidence or the target of the search might be moved, the police can, according to the extant law, apprehend such things by way of a search.
All right, before we go to editorial, let's just take 1 or 2 stories from Daily Sun. Ararume is in Assau, negotiate with Abuja to fight Okorocha. That's on page 39. As you said, the gale of defection still very much on. Neji, ABC Transport bus picks go back from, oh, fine. And look at this one again. We've had that before. 6 APC governors, 27 announced members to join PDP soon.
Yeah, that's the riders to that very headline with regard to where PDP, they're saying that they're expecting 6 APC governors and so on. APC, that's one of the riders there. That's from the New Telegraph now. The riders to the lead story. APC, you will wait till eternity. That's what they are saying there. Very quickly, Kirian, that's the story there above the nameplate of the New Telegraph. It says Nigeria 6 refinery licenses expired in August, and dips production by 91,000 barrels, and stagnant permits rise to 36. Permits for the construction of petroleum refineries. Yes, but that's the much that we can take. Kirian, let's go back to...
Let's go to the editorial this morning. The editorial is on Nigeria capitalize on renewed scramble for Africa. Now, it says Africa's evolving status as the last frontier for trade and investment is currently suiting well with foreign investors, with a flurry of overtures already being dangled by developed economies that are willing and ready to do business with the continent. But Nigeria, as Africa's largest economy, has to prepare herself to get the lion's share of the wave of investments being anticipated on the continent in the months ahead. Kingsley, just the president and a team of Nigerian businessmen and, of course, government officials are currently in China, and China is already dangling $60 billion on the continent. And, of course, this issue of Nigeria playing its key role as the largest black nation on the in the world, what do you think should be the takeaway from China?
Well, that's again the part we discussed that on the program yesterday. The takeaway is to position ourselves, as the editorial has encouraged, to be a magnet for this rush of investments, as well as grants and aid and soft loans, but one that again we should be wary of. With regard to falling into a debt trap. We saw what happened in the late 70s and early 80s when Nigeria got into debt, and it wasn't until just about 10 years ago that we got relief from the Paris and London clubs. But what is significant is to secure investments for projects and infrastructure in particular that will help catalyze the growth of the economy.
Because what happened in the late 70s and early 80s could be the fact that these loans were gotten, but were not properly utilized, for the purpose it was meant.
Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons why we had that problem.
And there was also the problem that some of those projects that were chosen in the late 70s and early 80s, we saw that in particular with regard to the Second Republic, these were just prestige projects. And then we ran into deep financial trouble. Kirian, that's the much that we can take. There are other stories, of course. You want to check inside the papers, human interest stories. Some robbers, one chance robbers in Lagos were being pursued by the police on the 3rd Mainland Bridge, and one of them jumped into the lagoon. All right.
You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Time now for us to move into the nitty-gritty of our conversation this morning. And we are taking off with this background report by Aisha Ubali.
Political parties are formed by groups of individuals who share similar ideology with commitment, belief, and loyalty to party ideology rather than selfish and financial gains. The Nigerian 1999 Constitution, as amended, has provided for political parties to operate both externally and internally within a stipulated guideline. Political parties allow for inclusive participation as well as promoting activities which allows selected few to govern the affairs of a state. Therefore, funds are critical in proper and effective functioning of democratic political process and politics. As such, political parties need to articulate their ideas and visions to the public through campaigns. That notwithstanding, all democratic nations have regulations guiding financing of political parties and campaigns. Political analysts are, however, faulting political party campaigns in most African countries, including Nigeria, due to non-compliance with such regulations, thereby subjecting the system to irregularities and corruption. While politicians in the past had strong belief for party ideology and could support on personal grounds to see it succeed, however, the coming of money bags has made political parties cash and carry. Again, analysts attribute this to the viewing of political offices as investment to reap from rather than position of responsibility. With all the efforts made to reform laws regulating political campaigns and party funding, observers say more needs to be done, despite the existence of an enabling act to sanitize campaign financing in Nigeria. Money has continued to play a big role and influence choice of candidates as even the cost of picking nomination forms to aspire for political offices are exorbitant. Some analysts believe the issue of political financing has deprived many, especially women and youth, from participating in politics and underrepresented in the political space. Why does money rules in Nigerian politics? How can the situation be addressed? Are competent persons deprived chance due to lack of money? These questions will be answered shortly on the program this morning as guests estray political parties' financing and nomination fee.
All right, thank you very much, Aisha Ubali, for that background report. Guests with us in the Abuja studios would like to welcome them at this time for this conversation. First, Adamu Garba. Adamu Garba is right here with us, and he's a presidential aspirant. Balam Adamu, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay, also here with us is civil society activist Cynthia Mbamalu. Cynthia, good to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. And last but not the least, with us here in the Abuja studios is Udengs Radiri, is another young politician and former president of the Ijaw Youth Council. Udengs, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
And all right, in our Kaduna studio, we have Usman Mohammed, who is joining us from there to, of course, be part of our conversation on election campaign financing in Nigeria. Hello, Mohammed. You're welcome to the program. Gentlemen and lady, let's get started. Now, the political landscape, is agog at the moment with both known and unknown politicians jostling for tickets for 2019 elections, of course, elections of different categories of positions of authority. Now, let's first of all begin by looking at the entire scenario, with what we make of this. Iradere, let me begin with you. What do you make of what is playing out at the moment?
Well, after every 4 years in our history, there's always an election, and we are actually at the electioneering period, and so the drum beats are sounding, people are getting ready, and so it's normal that at this point, people will begin to involve themselves in the activities that will lead up to the forthcoming elections. And these activities come in various means. Everybody wants to sell it himself. And so I think that that's what's happening now.
Well, Kisley, yeah, okay, let's say from the young presidential aspirant, because perhaps you are having the experience for the very first time, and you could see what is happening in the arena at the moment in all the political parties, everybody gearing towards the 2019 election. We will have to change buttons will have to be changed, and everybody is jostling for that. In your opinion, what have you been able to, what's your observation so far with the trend of events in the political landscape of the nation?
Yes, as my brother said earlier, it is actually a natural process. After every 4 years of democracy in Nigeria, the way our constitution is structured is that after 4 years, we choose our elected representatives. So it's just like the moment that is coming up now. So we are expected to see a lot of things. And one of the things that I have observed is over monetization of the process, which is actually a disenfranchising effort towards so many important people that are supposed to participate in the political arena. Actually, political parties usually are supposed to be funded by Nigerians, not by candidates or people. The people just need to see which candidate is the best they can choose after several debates and some manifestations of the right programs that appeals to them. So these are actually what usually supposed to be a pointer to selecting a candidate, when he has the right character, the competency, and also the capacity to deliver. But this 2019 is becoming over-monetized, and it's something that gives us a lot of concern, especially when it comes to the future of Nigeria's democracy.
All right, thank you. That's a point amongst the several that you made. You said Nigerians are supposed to finance political parties. Could you explain that?
Yes, I explained that because political parties are Nigerian parties. They are not an individual's party. They don't belong to candidates. And that is why you see over looting when people get elected to offices, because they spend a lot. And when they get to offices, they try to recoup this fund. Somebody like me, I'm contesting under the APC platform, and my form is supposed to be 45 million, or is 45 million naira as passed by the party. It's not all about me. It's about the entire youthful population of Nigeria that are contesting on different offices in the country. This is a very serious issue. So what I'm saying is Nigerians are the ones that will buy the interests of their party and then go ahead and fund it, not candidates, because if you put the pressure of funding on candidates, you are automatically incentivizing these candidates to, as soon as they get into office, they should try to recoup this money. And this is actually not a good image for our democracy.
All right, Madam Adamu, thank you very much. We'll ask the question later whether you have picked up your expression of interest form. So, Cynthia, let's get your take on what you are seeing in terms of the outlook for the 2019 elections. Outlook with regard, of course, to the primaries, which are right upon us, and then the election campaign.
Well, I think one, it's another interesting phase in our electoral democracy in Nigeria, and the thing is, for every election year, we always have expectations. And as a young Nigerian, for one, leading the Not Too Young to Run a movement, one of the things we are looked out for is that once we had the bill passed, which we had that happen in May, that the political parties would also create that space for young people to contest for office within the parties, to emerge within the parties as candidates. But that is where we're having the challenge, because now you're seeing party nominations that is exorbitant, and I'm quite frightening. But beyond that is also the whole issues on party primaries and the modes of party primaries. You'd see normally this is within the Electoral Act mandates parties that you can either do direct or indirect. And we always, one of the advocacy is the fact that we need parties to start adopting direct primaries, because what that does is it creates better opportunities for women and the young people to contest equally within the parties. But now we've seen the APC for one saying, okay, they will do direct primaries, but states are at liberty to choose what to do. And you can hear some states even thinking of consensus. And that to us that is not democratic. Consensus is not democratic. It's not democratic practice. You either do it direct and indirect, and then the modalities you also introduce in that. Then the major worry is the whole role of money in politics, like my brother here has said, because we cannot continually have our politics and campaigning. We cannot continually disassociate it from our reality. We live in a country where unemployment rate is at the increase, poverty is at the increase, and we keep seeing, and now we're seeing the growing rate of votes buying. You saw that in Ekiti. We're worried we will see that in Osun, because our pre-election observation in Osun already shows voter inducement in local government within Osun already. So money is already being a determining factor. And we're saying, at what point do we as a people stand still and say, no, we no longer want money to become that thing that determines who we choose as leaders. We want to look at character, we want to look at competence, we want to look at capabilities of aspirants that emerge as candidates within the parties, because what you do with money is that you limit it to a few that may have had access to money illegally. Because one, we have an electoral framework, for instance, a legal framework that provides for limitations on campaign financing, for instance, but we know how weak the framework is for monitoring and tracking that. So over the years, there's a lot of people that breach that provisions. You see news report that shows you that APC or PDP in 2015 spent billions, which exceeds the amount required the limit in the Electoral Act. But we don't see any action taken to prosecute people that breach the campaign financing laws. So already we have a weak legal framework when it comes to implementation, because we have the policy. We have that already. That's a challenge. And now we still have the money becoming that determining factor. So each elections, we are left with limited options, because young people that have the capacity will be kicked out at the point of purchasing nomination forms. Women also. And let us also remember that whenever parties even give free tickets, it means that free tickets means you would not even have access to the ballots, because giving them free tickets is like when the devil gives you a gift with the right hand, he takes it with the left. So we have a huge problem here, and I was expecting that our parties, you look at the APC constitution in their preamble, they talk about promoting equal opportunity. If you have that as a principle in your constitution, then you should also imbibe that in your policies. When it comes to campaigning, primaries and all, equal opportunity should be reflected in such a way that irrespective of social class or status, candidates or aspirants with the capacity would have access to compete equally within the parties and emerge as candidates, because the parties are the only platforms through which candidates will be emerging for 2019. So I think we are at a fix, and this is a huge issue and we should take it seriously, because we can't continue to give money the upper hand when it comes to elections in Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Cynthia Mbamalo. We'll return to you in the course of our conversation, because we will also take the woman angle in this connection, but we don't know how much the women are participating in all of this. But for now, let's turn to Usman Mohammed in our Kaduna studio. Usman Mohammed, let's get your line of thought, with respect to the political activities playing out now in all quarters against the backdrop of the 2019 election.
Okay, thank you. It's obvious from the opinion that comes out from the studio over there with the discussants that the high fees of nomination and expression of interest is highly unjustifiable. I have pitched my tent on that. and that has been on since 1999. Now, at the background, when we listened to the report before the discussions, I was so excited with the presenter when she said that the process has to be all-inclusive, and then secondly, to discourage godfatherism. And she ended up very well with the issue of money bags coming to sponsor certain candidates, which will shortchange the democratic process. And when we allow that to be leveraged, definitely we have a huge problem. As Cynthia has said, she has analyzed this issue very well. And two issues are critical here. Number one, the not too young to run bill will be definitely jeopardized with this kind of exercise. Secondly, the issue of gender, social class, and status will not be looked at. And thirdly, the most competent that are really not able to sell their houses, sell their property, and even meet up with such amount are definitely going to be outwitted with this kind of high monetization, as Adamo has said, the presidential aspirant in your studio. Now, I have heard that also, I don't know whether it's true, that some of the presidential aspirants have gone to court challenging the political parties on this issue. And democracy is a learning process. It can evolve by laws, by conventions, and also by precedents. It's not good for us to make serious aspersions on these political parties. They themselves needed money, and they have been starved. And to raise money, of course, these are avenues for which they raise money. But it is too exorbitant, as I said. And lastly, I would like to also say that this issue cannot be tamed without civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations coming together to forge ahead, to make demand, and also to present a credible research. For example, we copied the United States democratic presidential system. How is it obtainable with the Democratic and Republican parties in the United States? You remember very well, Keria, that during the oil subsidy, the government was so much in a haste to give us a comparison between the prices internationally and how low we purchase fuel here. So why can't we make comparison of such issues? Study other nations, study how their candidates emerge, and then study how these nomination forms are bought and sold, and whether credible candidates can leverage on those avenues where they can come out tops. But it is unjustifiable and unfair for the Nigerian people, and also for the not too young to run bill to succeed.
Dr. Usman Mohammed, thank you very much there for your opening shots. Just to indicate that the primaries are only about 3 weeks away for at least some of the political parties, and we have 91 political parties. So this focus is not on any political party, even though we have a presidential aspirant of one of the parties right here with us in the studios. And my question is going to Udengse Iradiri. We have seen all the parties don't have uniform, if you like, fees for the expression of interest forms or nomination forms. The fees are varied, but the complaint has been, of course, that the fees would appear to be rather excessive. How would you respond to the argument that has been canvassed quietly in some quarters that you needed this as a filtration process? Otherwise, you could be faced with 1 million potential aspirants. And how do you process 1 million aspirants in order to be able to get a candidate if you lower the bar so high at the beginning with regard to expression of interest?
Well, first of all, we agree partially to the fact that you needed to weed out, politics is not an all-commerce affair. At this level, when we are talking about credibility, credibility is not just about your capacity to do the job, but you must have to also get to a particular economic level in order to contest an election. It's not something that because everybody must contest, everybody wants to. No, there has to be a process of weeding out or a bar, so that if you are not up to a particular level, you will not contest. But I think for the ruling party, they should have acted as, they should have led by example, by making sure that the masses have access to the party nominations. This is because they ruled on the back of the masses. While the APC was campaigning, a lot of people supported, contributed money, and now they want to go back to an election and you make it so high. I think that is really too exorbitant. And again, the INEC should have come out with a peg to say, this is what we expect every party, the benchmark for nomination forms. But Nigeria is not like every other country that we always want to compare ourselves to, like the US, where the individuals take ownership of the parties, and in that way, not just by lip service, but also contributing their own funds to supporting candidates. So if we are going to be looking at our situation, then we must marry it with our culture as well. How do our people react to issues? We talked about not too young to run bill, which I supported to an extent, because if you look at the age of young people in Nigeria, you talk about between the ages of 35 to 50. Because before a young person graduates from our university, gets into public service or business, to the point where he can contest an election, he must have gone beyond 30 years. And so if we must be talking about young people, we must be talking about quality. Because if you look at elective positions and appointed positions in Nigeria, I have a lot of young people. But what is the quality of service delivery? And so for me, I think that we must look at quality. And that quality will also entail economic capability. If you must contest an election, then you must get to a particular level in society. First of all, you come from school, you go to work, and gather some experience before you have the capacity to go into elective positions. But I agree that the prices are exorbitant. I am of the PDP stock. I'm also contesting for the House of Representatives. The party, first of all, came up with exorbitant pricing, but later, because of the complaints, they decided to reduce it, even though it is not also at the level where some people can afford. But at least for you to be able to come to lead the people, then you must attain a particular economic status. Nigeria itself must sit down and say, what do we do to correcting it? My sister was talking about laws. If we do not enforce the laws and have the kind of leadership that will ensure that the right thing is done, we'll just be rolling in circles. You cannot, within the basket of dealing with vote buying and all other criminal actions that are called within the electoral process, begin to say, okay, let us look at only the cost of nomination forms. We must deal with every other aspect in order for us to arrive at a proper electioneering environment.
That's right. Well, thanks. So the reason, I mean, you, the gentleman and lady, in terms of your responses, you already focused on the front end of election campaign financing, which has to do now with the primaries right upon us. And what the critical issue with regard to the primaries has to do with the expression of interest forms as well as nomination forms. That's why we are focusing on that. Of course, there are a number of issues along the value chain of election campaign financing. And Cynthia, I would like you to respond to the theory of filtration. As Udenks himself has indicated, that look, it's not everybody who necessarily, yes, you have the right, you have the access, but at some point you couldn't possibly have 1 million aspirants. How do you administratively deal with that? And even for the not too young to wrong persons, that is to say, the younger generation, you still need some measure of qualification, as he says, some value in your standing with regard to perhaps the size of your pocket.
Well, I've never seen anywhere in the world where money is that thing that determines capacity to lead. Because what is leadership, if you want to look at it, is about identifying a need and having the ideas or developing methods or ways to meet those needs or address those needs. And what we need in Nigeria now is our leaders that understand our reality and can come up with solutions to address our challenges. And that is what is lacking, because over a period of years, look at our history, we're still battling with our challenges. And the problem is, don't we have Nigerians with high intellect, Nigerians that understand the problem, Nigerians that have solutions? We do. In a country with over 180 million persons, we do. But the problem begins with our political party systems. Now, while it is important, I'm not asking for free nomination forms. And interestingly, the electoral amendment bill that is yet to receive presidential assent actually did amend Section 87 to now regulate political parties in position of nominations. And at that, they had put in the proposed amendments that for every party, you can't task your party members more than 10 million, for instance, for presidential, for nomination charges for presidential aspirants. So you already have a proposal. And the reason why we had that proposal, because even for the lawmakers in the National Assembly, they had even taught with civil society that we actually need to regulate this. So that is one point. The other is the fact that when it comes to politics, it's not an all-comers affair. True. However, we shouldn't put in barriers or challenges or roadblocks to persons that actually can't compete. Our constitution, when it comes to eligibility for office, there is no mention on how much you should have. Because even in making of the constitution, we know it's not about how much you can have. It's about how much the people can trust you to vote for you. So within the parties themselves, if we have primaries that are conducted in a democratic way, free and fair, you would have aspirants that can emerge through that process. So the parties themselves, what we're saying is, if you're imposing a fee, make it reasonable, make it justifiable, make it ensure it suits our current realities, and then let the best candidates emerge. What we have currently is each time you go to the polls, you are limited to options because you see a recycling of persons in leadership. So it's almost like the same names you've seen, you keep hearing them. They run as governors, they run as senators. They run as senators, they want to come back to run. People that are running, all the names you've seen, aside from the younger candidates, running for the president, declaring to run for presidential office, and names we already know before. They've been somehow, they either have had access to power, had relationship with power, been in power at one point, and we're saying, do we want to see a recycling of leadership? Open up the space so that more credible Nigerians, more people that have what we are looking for can emerge. We have a major challenge. We are stagnant as a nation. We're not moving forward, and we should, because Nigeria is a rich and blessed country. We shouldn't be where we are, and it begins with leadership, because if we don't address the leadership problem, we would not address our problems in Nigeria. And the parties have a major role to play, because they are the platforms through which leaders can emerge. So we would focus our attention on the parties, and we'll keep hammering for the parties to act more and think about national development and give spaces for more people that can actually lead us properly in the country.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. Interesting. And we'll move on to Adamu Garba, who is actually a presidential candidate. They say that who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. Now, let's take an excerpt from the submission of Mr. Eradiri in connection with finding a way to reduce the number of aspirants by way of pegging some amount of money. And of course, from what he also said, that you need to get to some level of economic status in the society for you now to vie for a position of authority. But of course, apart from capacity and what we have spoken, it's also necessary for one to have leadership ability. Because for one who has garnered perhaps a businessman who has done good business and controlled men and resources, he will be able to do that when it comes to the public sphere. Now, what's your take on the issue of ensuring that it doesn't become an all-comers affair?
Yes, the nomination all alone to become a leader in a society, you have some variables to measure. Of course, as Cynthia said, no one is asking for free nomination form, So, but the problem here is you cannot have a country that has about 92% of the population living below 60,000 naira per month, and then you now put so much exorbitant fee, is actually somehow like an insult to the sensitivity of Nigerians. But if you are talking about the capacity and the competency of Nigerians to be able to deliver, I model myself personally as kind of a person that reflects a Nigerian dream. I started life as an Almajiri boy, and I passed through almost all the stages of life. Now I was able to establish a company that is 10 years old, controlling 45 staffs, with offices in Lagos and Abuja, one of the largest partners of Microsoft in Sub-Saharan Africa, servicing 39 African countries. I can be able to muster 45 million naira to buy the firm. And I also demonstrate capacity of translating something from zero to nothing. But I cannot sit down and say simply because I have capacity, I don't have another 87 million poor Nigerians, extremely poor Nigerians, that I am sensitive to their feelings. As my brother here said, we have to lead by example. Our party is a progressive party. Therefore, there must be participatory democracy. The space must be open. We have about millions of youths that are interested in coming to the political space. Yet, because the few people that are leading just continue to loot the system and then keep recycling themselves simply because they have the money and they put it as a criteria, thereby shutting down intelligence brain out of the system. And everybody is suffering the consequences, frankly, including the party. Currently, we have a crisis. You have the NEC opting for direct primaries for everybody. You have the governors, because they pay the highest bill, they are saying they want to do indirect primaries. This is the consequences of powering individuals to use money as a determinant of control. Meanwhile, it's supposed to actually be people that are supposed to be controlling political parties. Now, if you look at like most of the political parties, like for instance in the United States, the Republicans that produced President Trump, they have to pass through series of checks and balances. Several candidates, I think 17 or 18 of them, came out to contest for the president. They've done a lot of debates. Check the people choose the candidate they wish before he emerges. Then he can be able to go and obtain the form, then continue what he's doing. So these are all criteria of checking who is actually the right candidate that has the right capacity, the right competency, and also the right character to be able to deliver on the country. Somebody like me have studied for 12 years to come up with robust statecraft model that can fit into Nigerian project. I always say this, that there is no presidential aspirant in the history of this country that has ever articulated clear vision for Nigeria as I did. From 2019 to 2035, about 16-year plan, clearly addressing almost all the Nigerians' challenges, something I have drawn on. So these are the things you need to look at now.
Madam, we'll pause you while you are getting to the campaign mode. Because as you can see, your other likely challengers in your party are not here with you in the studio to contemporaneously respond to what you have said. But the issues that you have articulated, I'm sure our viewers have noted those issues. Let's go over to our Kaduna studios and get the views of Dr. Usman Mohammed. Dr. Usman Mohammed, we would like you, of course, you've listened to the comments here by our guests. We would like you to respond to the filtration theory as a rationale for what has been described as exorbitant cost of expression of interest and nomination forms, virtually amongst all the political parties. Is there any amongst the 91 political parties that is saying, look, come and take this form for free? There is none. And by the way, let's also note this. The APC has been mentioned fairly frequently. The APC also has a concession arrangement by which persons living with disabilities and women are scheduled to obtain the forms at 50% of cost. Dr. Mohammed, let's have your take.
Thank you. By the way, you have to charge Adamu for that campaign before he leaves the studio. Now, when you look at Ekiti alone, Kingsley, we have 259 candidates that have come out to contest for less than 25 posts in the state alone. While we are here lamenting on this fact that the fees are high, and yet Nigerians' resilience and the candidates, potential candidates, who see their capacity to rule cannot be limited, are still coming out with audacity to contest. This is unparalleled, especially at this time. But let me say this. If this regime that is leveraging on integrity, honesty, and credibility will not sit down and give us a good legislation on this Frankenstein monster that we have manufactured, it will consume us. I'm very sure that most of the young people that I have produced from the universities have made impact in the political scene in Nigeria. For example, Abdulmumin Jibrin was my student, and we produced so many of their types. If Abdulmumin Jibrin was not having the money ab initio to contest from his ward, he wouldn't have been what he is today in the National Assembly. I'm very sure that we have brilliant students that are wasting. Your question is pertinent, Kingsley, and the fact that political parties need to leverage this in their purse and also go out, establish academy of leadership. You see, I always lament this fact that there is no mentorship, no political mentorship in Nigeria. If we believe in Muhammadu Buhari and we can have a consolidated ambassadors that will readily cough out 45 million for his expression and nomination forms to come out in 2019 and contest with other candidates, we should have that kind of organization that will press on the president to leave a legacy of either a school like the Kennedy School, which I was in Boston, the Kennedy Leadership School, or any other school that will mentor issues of party ideology, leadership qualities, and patriotism and leadership in an emerging nation like Nigeria. It's not yet Uhuru. We have problems. But all he will do up till his running end time, probably if he is also elected back, is to chase corruption, and chase corruption. It's not enough. The issue of mentorship for these young people to believe, if you sign a bill for them to be leaders, where is the platform in which you train them, you model them? Where is it? Do they just believe you on the pages of newspaper or from your charisma? So these are issues of national development as well. So we will still ask the question of parties to come out with pause or with kind of funding within them that they can go all out and look at academic students that have excelled and also that have leadership qualities in which Cynthia have just enumerated. For example, that lady Cynthia there before you, it's a very, very good lady. She has these qualities. We can start developing this kind of people in such academy with their belief, and then you now can tell who will be what, where. And so they will have what? They will have their loyalty to the state instead of having their loyalty to individuals that will come out with their money and sponsor them. So it's a challenge, Kingsley, that within these parties, 91, I'm very sure by next year there will be 100 parties registered at the astronomical registration in which we are having with INEC. But let it be. That's the beauty of democracy. Some of them will definitely come to extinguish themselves naturally. The law of natural selection will be there. But what we are saying here is the fact that just like Kingsley, just like Legal Aid Council, where they provide for the common man if he can't get legal address on issues, let the political parties start thinking about leveraging on our youths on that age bracket of 30 to 50 up to 65, because they said even 65 year old is a youth. So let's have the definition. Let's also go out and hunt these talents and also sponsor them. They will have loyalty to the state rather than loyalty to individuals. This is very important.
Thank you very much indeed. There are issues you've raised actually that, if time allows us, we'll still go into all that. Because, talking about party money bags and all of that, since 1999, we've had these stories of parties, especially in states, built around a personality who has the money to dole out. He buys even tickets for people who run different offices, and that was exactly where godfatherism started. Be that as it may, let's come to the issue of funding of political parties. Funding of political parties is quite critical to the sustenance of the party machinery. That's the only way parties raise funds. That should be a way parties raise funds. We recall that during the Babangida era, when we had a list to the right, a list to the left, two parties were actually created for Nigerians, right, to be sponsored by government. That failed. Recall also that we had the issue at the time when INEC was giving some funds to parties to help sustain the political parties. Now, the operators of parties machinery have also come up to say, look, this amount of money that we're pegging for nomination forms is also part of fundraising activity. And I want to ask Mr. Radere, who is also a practicing politician, to let us know how parties could be funded, because what they're doing is merely to raise funds for the political party.
Well, I think that it's because of our weak institutions. Ordinarily, we should have political parties who do business, agriculture. There are a lot of opportunities that political parties can veer into in order to sustain the party. Well, you see, because of where we're coming from, the history right from the 1950s, political parties have always been funded by either money bags or institutions. Of course, the British governments funded the political parties in the late 50s in order for candidates and their agenda to be fostered on Nigerians. So it is a culture that have already been embedded in Nigerians. So today I think that if we must make progress, political parties must begin to look beyond nomination forms to raise funds for the party. But here, these parties only arise when it is close to elections. Political parties, just like the lecturer was saying, should have institutions where they teach potential candidates on their party ideology even before the time of election. But we don't have such strong institutions, so we'll have to be faced with the reality of what we have seen today, where money bags will be the ones who want to fund political parties for personal reasons. But above that, I think there are a few areas that I wanted to look at. First of all, I want to commend the guest here who decided to go to the ruling party, to express himself before Nigerians. I think that the not too young to run agenda is a good one, but it's not tailored properly. Ordinarily, young people should have our own party to say this is where we are going to express ourselves through. And then we galvanize strength around young people in the country to fund and support the party. Young people have, some of them have 2, 3, 4 phones. They charge these phones. If every young person is made to pay 1,000 to that purse, because we believe that we want to bring a candidate forward that can change the situation and then campaign to the mindset of young people, I think there will be a sharp deviation. But what my experience was that when the new party started and a young party came up, before you knew it, the young party started having their own issues. The next thing they want to say, I have left to go and set up on that party. But I now thought that the best way we can go is that young people must find their way into the major parties in the country and then muscle power in that place, mobilize other young people to support. And that's why I said I commend him. People like us who have said we will not leave the major parties. We must go there, mobilize young people. But there are also young people who are delegates that will be involved in the primaries. Today they have started this issue of we want to impose godfatherism and the rest. And my campaign have been that we are not witches. Only witches eat themselves at night and cry in the day. Why would you allow somebody to impose a candidate on you and then for 4 years you will start to complain? that campaign, we are doing it to build the consciousness of young people. And that's where I expect the not too young to run, to focus their energies in. Let us look at young people, like the young man in the APC going for presidency today. How do we gather young people to say, the last time President Buhari was contesting, young people contributed money. Today, young people have also contributed to buy his form. Why are we not putting ourselves as young people to buy the form of younger people that are in such political parties? So, in the issue of funding, it's also related to funding. Yes. Because if we do that, and then we channel our energies to bringing young people together, to understanding the issues, and then through the process of filtration, because we too must filter amongst young people who are the qualified ones. You heard what I said earlier, that a young man must get to an economic level. You saw his profile. There are a whole lot of young people who are also doing well, because before you gather the experience to be able to run a country like Nigeria, you must have done something, either in business, either in politics. Maybe you started, luckily somebody appointed you and you used it to express yourself and gather knowledge. But the most important one is that you must show yourself in business. What have you done after leaving school to warrant you to be qualified to lead people? Because if you don't have that experience, you can never, no matter how brilliant you sound. So funding.
Udanks,
yes.
Thanks a lot. The question that Kirian asked with regard to funding is a relevant one, and you've addressed various aspects of it. I just wanted to ask Cynthia, but let the question go to Adamu Garba, and in fact, perhaps yourself. Political parties, as you said, we have 91 of them. They have members. And then the parties have organs, and these organs take various decisions. But in terms of escalating the cost of electioneering, do members of a political party have a voice in directing party managers on how to set perhaps the parameters so that fees or charges are not seen as being too exorbitant? Because ultimately, I mean, the money is coming from the aspirants now. When it gets to election time and when it gets to victory, it is the party that takes the victory, as we have seen in various legal decisions. Adamu.
Yes, it all boils down to the same issue that Dr. Usman have said and also Odans have said, party ideology. Party ideology is very, very interesting, and it's supposed to be something that needed to be while reforming the institution of registration of political parties, which is the INEC. Now, what makes people to join political parties and be able to even contribute meaningfully to its sustenance is when the ideology aligns with that party. And in the institutional global norm, there are 4 keywords that has been identified that usually make up a party ideology. You have order, you have stability, you have justice, you have equality. For people that are on the right, they always go for order and stability. And for people that are on the left, they always go for justice and equality. And the combination of the two sides in different variations give you center left and center right that we used to do, and then we see far left and far right. So I am not a proponent of several political parties. I'm a proponent of very few political parties that align with ideologies. Now, as a member of a political party, if I am supposed, like I am now, as a member of APC, I'm supposed to be a financially contributing member of the party, because simply this party is advancing the cause of the ideology I believe in. All my families are supposed to be belonging to the party, and I don't take any bad thing if I lost. I don't shift to another party like the way we see in Nigeria, where simply because you don't win election, you jump to another party because we don't have ideology. Ideology is actually what defines the principle of party formation, and this is actually where we get it wrong. It's not the INEC that is wrong. It's actually from the lawmakers that needed to sit down and review the institution of INEC Act and make sure guiding ideology is part of the first thing that you consider before registration of a party. So I am a proponent of right and left and maybe center left, center right, but not so many political parties that are polarized. Now, imagine if we come to 2023, how many political parties will we have on the ballot? Are we thinking about 1,000 political parties? Simply because I'm angry with one party, should I just go and just register a political party? These are the issues we truly, truly need to address. And in the issue of funding, it's supposed to come from individual members of the party. As a member, a registrant of the party, I'm not just collecting the party card. It is my identity, it is my ideology that shapes and governs the party system. And therefore, I am supposed to contribute, no matter how small it is, monthly or somehow, to the upkeep of the party. And that is why the party will truly belong to the people, the candidate will truly work for the people, the country will truly be democratic, and everybody will be liberalized.
All right, thanks a lot. Kieran, we have a number of tweets that have come in. Well, I mean, the purpose of public broadcasters, such as the Nigerian Television Authority, is to help, you know, in terms of articulating ideas on relevant issues. We're talking about party financing. I was just wondering now, but this is just an aspect, do political parties have registered trademarks? So that when you are printing your caps and you are printing your vests, you are printing your pullovers and so on and so forth, no side street printer does that. If the person does it, it will be an infringement. So you print and then you sell, and then you are able to raise funds from such things.
You are going too far away, Kinsley, you know, because from what Adamu told us a short while ago, members of political parties are not financial members, so to speak. They are card-carrying members. So there's no dues collected by these people. You know, from my little experience, you know, covering politics, you know, in the hinterland, the followers are always after what they're going to make in every gathering. What they're going to make and put into their pocket. They're not prepared to put in anything. So the political system is not so structurized for individuals who are members of parties to know that they should, you know, contribute money. Is part of the problem. But I'd like you to come in there, Cynthia.
And I think that is where we have a problem, because when party leadership empowers members to start to, because if you start paying fees, it gives you a voice. And while we still have a problem, is because parties are yet to understand that, one, with or without elections, you should be an institution that is functioning. You should have a register of member, updated register of member. Your members should be financial members. And decision making should be bottom top and not top bottom. Now, what we have is parties that exist, most times beautifully written constitution, but when it comes to decision making, it's taken at the top. And because it's easier to limit decision to the top, you'd also want to, other party members don't feel they need to make any sort of contribution or sort of investment within the parties. And until parties start realizing that, one, you need to start raising funds. Your members need to be empowered. And being empowered is that they become financial members and also have a say in decisions within the parties. And even start running businesses. You talked about trademark. I think that is an idea you're giving to parties, because parties should even be making monies on their own.
They should pay me for that.
Yes, that is an idea. They should pay. That's a good consultancy idea. So I think parties are yet to understand that they are an institution that exists with or without elections. Because what we see is, if you go, we do assessments on political parties of offices before elections. You go around, you see most of the offices are non-functional, not even existing. You can't even see them function until towards elections. Then you see some offices opening. So you don't even have a system, a structure. You don't have, for the direct primaries, I'm actually looking forward to see how it will be conducted, because to do that, you need an updated register of members present. And how do you determine that this register of members is actually authentic? Because you need to be sure that every member that comes to vote is actually registered and the card-carrying member of the parties. So parties need to learn that they need to be democratic in their practices. Members need to have a say. If you pay, if you start paying fees, we also need to have a say in decision making. When it comes to nomination fees, this should be a party affair determined by members, not just by limited fees. It should be an issue that is debated within the party and a consensus reached. Okay, this is what would peg for nominations. For instance, these are decisions that should be decided or determined within the parties. But what we have is, if you even talk to members of some parties, they don't even know what is going on in parties most of the time, aside the few that have access to power. You even have young people within the parties that hold leadership. The youth leaders, for instance, most of them have challenges within the parties. The women leaders, most of them have challenges within the parties, because it's like they're just occupying an office. But when it comes to critical decision making, they are not involved. So that is a problem. We also need parties that we need to start having youth wings within parties. Parties that even have students or student wings, where they are going to universities to share and share their ideologies and get young people to even become members. Where parties are not thinking beyond who has access to to power. So that is the problem.
Political power, and economic power.
Cynthia, thank you. Let's stop you there for now. We'll return to you as we make progress on this program. You are watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at financing election campaigns, and of course the role of political parties in all of that. But we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll also be looking at what some Nigerians are saying with respect to our conversation this morning by way of tweet. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As Kirian indicated, we have some tweets that have come in, and you can see our Twitter handle is right there, as always, on the bottom left-hand corner at NTA GML. Let's take some of those tweets now. Law Alpha C tweets, we have an unfortunate scenario in our electoral process whereby aspiring for political positions means entry into business for profit.
All right, now from DW Nigeria Limited, the nomination fees that are high are put in place to prevent aspirants with genuine empathy for the masses from being in politics. He goes on to say that if people spend so much like that, why wouldn't they want to recoup their funds back? Why are we? Because we have greedy politicians.
And Amambola tweets, the issue of party nomination forms has again brought to the consciousness of Nigerians the need for independent candidacy. Some persons have argued that it's a way of carrying people away from getting many candidates. However, it is equally an avenue for some party escorts to take advantage.
All right, Festus Akimboewa, he said, it's sad that decent people are being priced out of service by the immoral fees parties charge for expression of interest and nomination forms in Nigeria. There should be some stiff restrictions on money raised and spent on elections by parties and individuals contesting elections.
We have this from Usman Bani Kantu. I hope I got that right. Bani Kantu. I can understand that political parties have no concrete and sustainable funding arrangements of their parties, and that is the reason for the high cost of expression of interest forms.
Now, Law Alpha says if political office holders couldn't pay workers for months, why should they ask for re-election? What should be the motivating factors? I think this one is almost off.
That's right. That says, Mobola again has this tweet, says, now, who does the financing? The same money bags who have been in the corridors of power. How then do we fight corruption successfully? Until we demonetize our electioneering process, we may not have succeeded in taming the corruption monster.
All right, now, Law Alpha, if political parties could take so much from aspirants, then they should not expect governments to assist them run their program.
Akins Dada, now the humongous cost of politics is fundamentally a cause and sustainer of financial misappropriation in the polity. There should be clear standardization of values attached. I always wonder why such financing isn't always prevalent in industrialization. So now, if you can pay industrialization, if you can pick a phone for so much, why don't you go and set up a factory?
Exactly. Now, Dr. Jack Solomon, it's a common belief that any citizen who meets the requirements outlined in the Constitution is qualified to contest any election in Nigeria. Political parties should stop adding to the constitutional requirements with exorbitant nomination form fees. Things must change.
All right, Kirian, that's the most that we can take in terms of the tweets that have come in. But I want to go to Kaduna, Dr. Usman Mohammed. One perhaps silent aspect of the cost of electioneering, which I would like us to address, is as follows, and it also relates to party management or party administration. Why would political parties require aspirants, all aspirants, with the exception now it's been clarified, of the State House of Assembly aspirants, to come to Abuja to collect their expression of interest and nomination forms, and then to submit same forms in Abuja for all categories of persons? Do parties not have state chapters? Do parties not sufficiently trust their state chapters to process these forms? Why would an aspirant incur such costs of having to come? If you don't have a house in Abuja, of course, you're going to stay in a hotel. It will cost you money. And the incentive then becomes, once you get into office, no, listen, I must have a flat or a house somewhere in Abuja. Why are parties not sufficiently decentralized to ensure that they can do these things at the provinces, at the provincial level, and then have a harmonization at the national level?
Now, that has to do with administrative lack of dexterity and innovation by the parties. And it also has to do with lack of trust by their lieutenants, party chairmen in the state. And at this age of technology, I believe that these forms can be tracked, genuine ones can be filled online. Once these candidates pay, they can be given a code number for administrative purposes and do that conveniently. And I think that that's an idea that you have brought, which the political parties must have to look into. But it's also a symbolic gesture. We must understand that some of these things are just traditional. There is no law guiding this, but it is symbolic that these candidates are seen in the Federal Capital Territory, where they all converge, show their face, make it as a ceremony that they have come to the Federal Capital, and there they are, flanked by their lieutenants, and the media make a whole carnival of them, and that's it. Added to that, Kingsley, let me add the issue of hunting for the youths. I was in South Africa, and I got interested in seeing how that the ANC rule itself and the process of leadership that comes out from that party. And I had been very interested in this guy, Julius Malema, who had created a kind of figure for himself in South Africa, and how the youth wing in the ANC evolved. It's a very long thing, and it's another story for another day. But I will tell you this, that the courage people like Julius Malema have to leave the ANC, create another party, Economic Freedom Party, and challenge the incumbent president on corruption charges is legendary. It's unparalleled in the history of African politics and youth movement. But it's understandable, you know, Kingsley, because ANC has serious history of organized militancy, organized ideology, and also there is an established sense of churning out leadership from the young. You almost can determine and predict who is next in the leadership. All the political parties in Nigeria don't have that. And that is the challenge for people like the President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been believed to be astute, outright, and somebody that can establish order. Let him establish a legacy. This is all we are saying. And also let the young ones go not to the library in Abeokuta and not learn the ideology of Obasanjo, but to understand how Obasanjo came as a leader from the military and then ruled this country as a civilian. What are his ideologies? What has he succeeded? Where has he failed? And then compare to the school, for example, of Muhammadu Buhari leadership. That kind of legacy in academic competition by our leaders is very much desirable in developing countries. You find them in developed countries. Now, what legacy are these people living? Where do you study them so well? But you leave their legacy to hungry writers, people who will hurriedly put up some of their traveling photographs and then some multilateral and bilateral agreements, either at the United Nations or at the sub-regional level, and tell you this is a book of the ideology of the past legend. I mean, we don't need that. We need something that we engage ourselves in as scholars, something that we compete, something that we compare. For example, the Kennedy School of Thought and Leadership in Boston. It's an excellent one, that you can go to Clinton's own and compare their different ideologies, and then you compare the inter-party, intra-party issues of leadership in Nigeria. This is very much desirable in Nigeria. So let's start thinking about this issue of youth and investing in them. And let us also get the good things that the leaders have done. We shouldn't castigate them for political difference. We should put them on a weight, on a scale, judge them academically, and then come out with schools of thought that can go across the studies of these leaders as they come and go, as they live their legacy. This is very much desirable. And I would like to live a life where I can visit the Muhammadu Buhari School of Thought and Leadership, and then I can go to Abeokuta, although I had been in Abeokuta several times in the library, studying some books and leadership of other world leaders and Obasanjo. So let us have this kind of established legacy that is left for us scholars and our students, so that we can come out with something good, and some very young people can ally themselves to these ideologies and foster growth and development, because ideas, knowledge are all based on this issue. Let me tell you, the visit the president has paid to China is instructive. The person he has shook his hand as the president of China, Xi Jinping, is a product of Mao Zedong. And this has been established for more than 70 years, as long as the age of President Muhammadu Buhari himself. So let me...
Is that you? All right, and that's the much we can take from our man there in Kaduna. He has been making very useful contributions to the conversation this morning. But gentlemen and lady, we have almost touched all aspects of this conversation, but more Nigerians are still reacting, and let's take some tweets now from them. Aminu Haliru. Actually, money is highly significant in election process. In fact, without money, election will not be successful, but not in vote buying, bribing INEC officials and security agencies.
This is from Godwin. It says the price for the nomination forms is a way of discouraging the youth from vying for political offices. Leadership is not by money, as Cynthia has rightly said. Let the people decide who leads, not their pockets. And it argues that this is the best episode ever in Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, Ali Galadanchi, he says, I think the parties need this money to keep them running. They only become relevant when it is election time. Hence, the money bags hijack the party system.
All right, that's it. This is from Abila Kwara Zakshi. Now, looking at the nomination fees for the political parties, it is clear that the has not too young to run movement is a waste of energy unless Nigerian youths look beyond major political parties and look critically for better alternatives within the remaining political parties.
Victor Onomo, he says, election financing can be moderated through sound economic policies. If majority of Nigerians are poor, then be ready for vote buying. If the buyer pretends, the hungry seller would rather not vote. But I am positive we will overcome our setbacks.
All right, so those are the tweets that we can take. In the meantime, we'd like to thank all our guests. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time. We only have a brief while to take our complimentary segments, which we had earlier advertised. Our appreciation to Cynthia Mbamalo, civil society activist, and of course, one of the persons in the Not Too Young to Run movement. Thanks a lot for being with us today. Udeng Seradiri.
For the day she will start running this time around.
Yeah, no, well, she's still sitting here in the space in the meantime. Udeng Seradiri, of course, another young politician, the former president of the Ijo Youth Council. Thanks a lot for your thoughts. And the presidential aspirant amongst our guests this morning, Malam Adamu Garba. Thank you very much. We do hope that after this program, you're going to pick up your expression of interest.
I was going to ask you to tell us when you're going to pick up his form.
All right. So thank you very much, Malam Adamu.
We're working on that.
Okay, that's great. And from Kaduna, Dr. Usman Mohammed, would like to appreciate you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so that does it for our conversation. Let's go over now to our complimentary segments.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you for being part of it. We'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the program. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Kirian in thanking you for being with us today. Do have a wonderful day.